Hello everyone and welcome to my Homebrew Beer Bottling A-Z guide. Before we know that our beer is ready to go into bottles, we must make sure that for the last 3 days of fermentation we have a consistent gravity. I will show you how to take that now. As always, the first step before you use any equipment that's going to come into direct contact with your beer is you must give it a thorough clean. I always use either Star San or SaniClean to sanitize my equipment. As you can see, this beer thief is actually quite difficult to put into the solution directly, so for that reason I use a spray bottle to fully sanitize this. The part of the process you didn't see here was that I actually put the beer thief in the other way up to start with. So now the beer thief is thoroughly sanitized, I can use it to retrieve beer from the fermentation bucket. I now use the beer thief to fill up the trial jar with the hydrometer inside. There's no need to sanitize the hydrometer and the trial jar because the sample beer will be thrown away afterwards. So we'll wait for any bubbles to subside, give the hydrometer a spin, and then when it settles, take a reading at the lowest point. Be sure to make a note of the reading you took on that day. Afterwards, give everything a really good clean. This process is repeated for the last 3 days, ensuring a consistent reading each and every of those days. Then you're ready to bottle. Okay, so you guessed it, the first step is to give all of your bottles a really good clean. I use PPW every second time that I wash a bottle, and the other time I use a simple washing up liquid. Ensure that you fully rinse the bottles after this cleaning process. After this, you'll need something clean and sanitary to put your bottles onto. Personally, I use the fast rack system for its small footprint and ease of use, and the fact that nothing is actually going into the bottle itself. As you can see, I can use this system for many different types of bottles, all different shapes and sizes. After washing the bottles and putting them on the fast rack, I generally leave them for about 30 to 40 minutes before starting sanitization. Sanitization wise, I would either use Star San or I would use SaniClean. They're both made by the same company and both do the same thing. SaniClean just doesn't have as much foam as Star San does. For sanitization of bottles, I would highly recommend the Avinator. It makes the whole process so much faster and easier. As you can see, a couple of pumps and the bottle's done. For bottles with swing caps, you can use the same solution to sanitize the cap. The Avinator works with all bottle sizes. Sanitized bottles then go back on the fast rack for draining. For tapper draft or party keg bottles, I would recommend sanitizing these separately simply by using a funnel and some Star San or SaniClean inside. Give it a good shake, leave it for a minute, and it's all good. So now all our sanitized bottles are safely back on the fast rack. So now we need a bottling bucket, which is simply a normal fermentation vessel with a tap fitted. We also need a siphon and we need a bottling wand. And you guessed it, these all need to be cleaned. They will come into contact with the beer, and cleaning and sanitization is the #1 thing about beer making. It's very important to make sure that that tap has some good cleanliness too, so I suggest putting soap and water into the fermentation vessel and then just simply opening the tap. After cleaning, it's important to wash all of that soap away and also to do the same with your siphon. I normally put this into a normal water solution and just pump it round just to get it all out. Then fill your bottling bucket with some Star San or SaniClean solution. Put your finger over the airlock hole and give the whole thing a good shake. After this, do the same thing with your siphon, pumping the sanitizer through. Now add the lid and move on to the next step. So now we're going to talk a little bit about bulk priming sugar. I would recommend using a website called Brewer's Friend. This will allow you to input all of the data to do with your beer and the level of carbonation that you're looking for, and actually calculate exactly how much sugar you should use. Weigh out your sugar and lightly cover it with water, and then bring it up to a boil, and then it's ready to be cooled down. After that, simply fill a small sink with some cold water, put the pan in, put the lid on, and allow it to cool down before adding it to your brewing bucket. You can also use carbonation drops in the same way if you wish. So now I'm emptying my bottling bucket from the sanitizer, pouring it through the tap and sanitizing that at the same time. So now my siphon goes into the fermentation vessel. The bulk priming sugar that we prepared earlier now goes into the bottling bucket. So you probably noticed earlier that I have one tapper draft bottle. You need to be very careful with these. These only need 2 grams of sugar per litre. So that's why I'll handle this just with the carbonation drops, far easier. So with the carbonation drops now added to the tapper draft, it's time to siphon directly into it. I'm also going to add some beer salt, just so that this beer really shines. This is something that you add to give extra clarity. So now with the priming sugar and the beer salt in, I'm going to siphon directly onto it. With the bottling wand on place, it's time to open the tap and also to check that the lid is loose so we don't get any vacuum. We now push the bottom of the bottle onto the bottling wand and out comes the beer directly into the bottle. This is so much easier than using a siphon. Simply remove the bottle to stop the flow. Add a sanitized cap and then just simply use your capping machine to pop it on. And then take your bottle upside down just to check for any leaks. I then add the finished bottle into a Pifco box so I can take it upstairs for carbonation. Before I do that though, sadly there's some more cleaning to be done before we move on to the next stage. So now what I like to do is actually design my own beer labels, and it's very simple. I just print them on a standard printer on normal paper, cut them out, use Pritt stick to stick them on, and I think you'll agree it looks rather nice. So now it's just a case of leaving them at room temperature for a couple of weeks. After that I take them down into my basement, which is usually between 12 and 14 degrees, and for most beers I'm going to let them settle in that cold temperature for another 4 to 5 weeks. I hope you found this video useful, and please like and subscribe.